A very good afternoon, Mahwera. Say good evening wherever you are watching from Sanbonani. And thank you so much for your subscription. Let us keep on sharing and having this conversation. Today I'm joined in by Whisper Makuni Ganya, and he said he has no issues with me calling him Makuni. That's the name that I actually like, closer to home. Our identity
That's
is
my
always
real name. That's my first name.
amazing, amazing.
Yeah,
Um, with this Operation Dudula versus foreign nationals going on in South Africa, do you see any
right.
possibility of us working together in future? I mean, just putting aside the illegal immigration in South Africa. I mean, for people who are legal in South Africa running businesses, do
Right,
you see any
right.
possibility of us rebuilding that trust with them? I mean, given all the grievances that Operation Dudula and South Africans have, how does
Mm,
the future look like?
wonderful. Thank you so much, Matarenda, for having me on your show. Firstly, let me just say you're doing a fantastic job. Your platform really provides an opportunity for people to, discuss and share, a very important, very important information given what is currently happening, in South Africa. Look, there's definitely ways we can, work together again. I think let me just start by saying, as much as they are, illegal foreign nationals living in South Africa, what is said is that, it's almost a situation where South Africans think everybody who's in South Africa is illegal. And this is not true. I want to correct that here now to say that there is thousands of people living in South Africa that are foreign nationals that are legal. They've got the right documentation. They've been in this country legally. They've been following the laws. They've been following processes for many years. Some have been here for more than 20 years, 25 years, 15 years, and so forth. But in the midst of that, it's important to also for me to stress this point that getting the right documentation in South Africa, it's not easy. Even when people want to get the right documentation, sometimes there are delays due to things that happens at Home Affairs, and these are things that are beyond foreign nationals, uh, you know, control. There are issues that happen with Home Affairs, and a lot of people have no powers over that, even when they want to regularize their stay in South Africa. So this idea that people want to be illegal immigrants, it's wrong, and it's not truthful. So operations Dudula, much too much, etc. When they say that everybody here, they are illegal, they are this, they're that, that is not correct. And painting everyone living in South Africa with the same brush, it's wrong because there are people living in this country that are foreign nationals that run legitimate businesses,
Hmm.
that are teachers, that are doctors, that work for themselves, selling whatever they sell every single day, making an honest living. All right,
Yeah, but
they're not
also,
doing anything illegal. Mhm.
that's right. But now, Operation Dudula and some citizens are now saying the
Mhm.
teacher's job that you spoke
Mhm.
about, whether you are legal or illegal,
Right.
it should be reserved for a South African. They are saying at least to take the critical
Mhm.
skills, anything that is highlighted as a
Right.
critical skill for teachers' jobs, your nurses and all that, leave it for South Africans. Spaza shops, leave them for South Africans.
Mhm.
So there are certain things that they are highlighting that whether you are legal or illegal, we want that for ourselves because our people are unemployed. If you can recall,
Right.
between 2008 to 2012, there was a call for many teachers from Zimbabwe to join in and help. Um, in teaching math and other STEM subjects. But when you look
Right.
from the time between that 2012 to now,
Right.
that's like what, over 10 years.
Correct.
The young people who were in secondary school have graduated now. They've got those skills. They know math. They've got an army of STEM skilled young people in South Africa. Where should they get jobs now? This is where the fight comes in, whether you are legal or not.
You raise an important, an important question, and it's a very good observation that most people that came during that period where, in fact, it was the government of South Africa that wanted, those type of skills in the economy. However, um, it's not everybody who is in South Africa who actually wants to work for a company.
Okay.
Most foreign nationals, and I'm talking about people that I know at a personal level, most foreign nationals that I know here work for themselves. They either run a small business of some sort where they sort of employ themselves to work in that business, whether
Okay.
it's shoe repairing or car repairs or whatever. But most people work for themselves in this country, right? Not a lot of people want to go out there and look for a job. Not a lot of people actually prefer that. Most people want their time. Most people work, for example, doing Uber, for example. I
Hmm.
can't, people, that opportunity is open for everybody to go there and work as a driver, or they deliver stuff, they take a lot. So when you look at the types of jobs that most foreign nationals actually go for, are the jobs that most South Africans, in most cases, would not even want to get involved in. For example, I've given you an example of Uber and Take a Lot and deliveries and stuff like that. Those jobs, they are not, they don't have a salary. You get paid, you get paid commission based on the deliveries you make per
Hmm.
day, and the opportunities are there. So it's all about the time that you put into that, and then you get something out of it. Also, when you look at, there's been a big issue, and I saw one minister talking about this, and another prominent individual talking about this, that when people go to restaurants, again, people that are there, it's only people from other countries. The opportunities in that market, they are there for everyone, all right? Local people are given those opportunities, but in most cases, based on my own previous experiences and when I spoke to people to find out what is actually happening in that industry, is that most of those jobs, they've got a very small, salary, and you get paid based on, again, tips.
Tips, yeah,
So you
yeah.
get most
I've
of your
seen that.
money on tips. So it's all about the amount of work or hours that you're willing to put in when you're working as a waiter at a restaurant.
Hmm.
How much time are you willing to put in that? And how is your attitude? Because tips depends on attitude, right? How
Yeah.
good is your service, etc. So you'd realize that if those things are not taught and you come with a bad attitude, it's difficult to make money in that industry, right?
Yeah.
Most people that make money in that industry, you really have to be grounded, learn the skill and understand how that industry works. Because I can tell you now, I don't know of a lot of foreign nationals that work for, some of the fast food companies, McDonald's,
Mm.
KFC, etc. I don't know foreign nationals that work there. Why? Because there's a base salary there, okay?
Yeah.
And most foreign nationals don't even try to go there. They
Okay.
understand. But
They go where there
these
is no
other,
base salary. But
then,
don't you think that
that,
the industry could have been regulated better to be like
Mhm.
the McDonald's and offer a best salary? But because there is an army of foreign nationals that are willing to just work for tips and well expose themselves to that kind of setup, maybe the labor department's laws that asks for a best salary would have been followed. Because sometimes this restaurant, honestly speaking,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
not fair to not put a best salary. There
Right.
should be a best salary no matter whatever the amount it is, and then the tips comes, you know, as part of the package. Sometimes all that humility that you might see from waitresses is because they just know that this is where the
Mm,
money comes from. You must have a certain attitude. It's not something
correct.
that you are coming from out of the country with. It's because it's being demanded
Right.
by the industry. But the laws could be more favorable if we were not just accepting this kind of conditions. I think this
I
is
agree
why,
with you.
yeah, this is why Operation Dudula is angry, because they say we come in and we accept those type of conditions, and employers end up thinking that this is how it should be. Then the labor laws are no longer enforced. So becomes very,
So
very difficult.
you make some very good points there, but my point and what I want to say here is that then organizations like Operation Dudula are being angry at the wrong people because these people that work there don't create these laws. Okay, let me just take you back. When you look at the immigration, this whole immigration phenomenon has not started yesterday. It's been there for centuries.
Yeah,
Back in the day, I'm talking about in the 1930s, 1920s, people again used to come from Malawi, Zambia, Zimbabwe to South Africa to work in the mining industry. Kimberley and all these other mining towns that you see. And the reason why people were being drawn from those parts of Africa again was because of cheap labor, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
the same thing that was happening in the 1920s, in the 1930s, in the mining sector, uh, you know, is manifesting itself at a restaurant. It's exactly the same thing
yeah, that's right.
that was happening back in the day, right? It's just different times, but it's exactly the same thing that has happened, you know, 70 years ago. Growing up, for example, and this is my own personal experience. When I was growing up, my grandfather used to talk about how he came to work how he came to work in Kimberley, for example. And this was like in the 20s, in the 30s, 1930s, or something like that.
Yeah,
And he worked there. And the reason why they came there again was because there was demand for cheap labor. And it's the same thing that we're witnessing today. It's been there. It's those that control
the
the
system
economy of this
or the
country.
economy.
It is
Yeah.
their laws that is the system. Exactly. It's the system. And as long as you don't change the system, you don't fix the problem.
Okay.
Where
So,
people are shouting and screaming and everybody's throat, you're not solving the problem. But let's go back and find out where the issue. It's a system issues that needs to be corrected so that
right.
the industries are regulated as well to accept everybody.
Okay. So, in other words, the focus should be more on the
Mhm.
employers, to stop them from employing people coming from other countries, or cheap labor conditions should be banished in any way. I don't know how that is possible. Maybe this communication been happening over the years, but well, you know that people want to make a huge profits, so they will always go for the cheap labor and do whatever it takes. There was a company I used to consult for, and one of the bosses once said that you will not give anybody permanent employment. It will just be contract, whether you are local or you are outside, because you are from outside, because he didn't want to deal with the laws. Even though contracting in that industry is legal, he was trying to make as much profit as he can, but without the obligation of paying, the retirements, UIF and all of that. He didn't want all of that. But because we were just so accepting in that industry, we would just be like, okay, it is what it is. It's either I stay here or I just leave. Somebody will also come and just say it is what it is. But at the end of the day, nothing changes. So when we
And I think
talk about these companies and how we can change the system from
mm,
the employer's perspective, it's kind of
mm,
difficult. There's always somebody willing to take that job. There's always someone willing
100%,
to accept that those conditions. Be it, I've seen local South Africans accepting those conditions and moving on with it.
100%. And I think let me just put it this way also. You again, very good observation. The reason why people end up, taking certain jobs, it's because of, what someone is going through at that particular time, right?
Yeah,
Or that moment in their lives. I want to give you this example. I grew up in the 80s and I grew up in the village. So back in the village, I remember that time we had an influx of people from Mozambique, right?
yeah,
People from Mozambique were in our villages. I remember at our home back in the village, I think we had about five or so, seven. With someone, helping in the kitchen, with someone helping in the fields, someone looking after livestock, with so many servants, uh, and they were not paid a lot of money. I
yeah,
think they were getting paid, $20 or something like that at the end of the month. But that money was a lot of money then because it had a lot of power. That money, it was really strong currency back in the 80s when I was still a little boy. But the point that I'm making is that these people at that time from Mozambique would take up anything. Every
yeah,
household had three or four people taking these jobs, right? Some were even, just walking kids to school, and
yeah,
because in Mozambique at the time, Mozambique was going through, in fact, there was a civil war, going on in Mozambique, and also there was a famine in Mozambique.
yeah,
So people getting paid $20 for them was a lot of money. And what they just wanted at the time was just food and so on. So they would take up anything and they were happy with that. So at the end of the day, the entire village had three or four Mozambicans working for you. This is
mm,
deep down in the village, right?
mm-hmm,
That happened. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because the reason why foreign nationals end up taking up any jobs, for whatever wages, okay, it's just because of what they're probably currently
yeah.
going through from
Which is
where they
still,
just came from.
yeah, that's right.
And
Which
and
is
and
not fair for locals, and hence Operation Dudula and March on March. Now, back then in the 80s, Zimbabwe was the breadbasket of
Mhm,
Africa. We had everything
correct.
going on, and the Malawians and Mozambicans that came,
Mhm,
they came. Some stayed, and some left. They had to go back home.
mhm,
Now that's the situation where South
right.
Africa is. It's a
Yes.
bit different. They are the breadbasket of
Mhm,
Africa right now, right? But the locals are also in the same
right.
situation. They are competing for that $20 to be paid for that amount. There is
Right.
a whole lot. There are some people
Right.
who stay in Tembisa, others who stay in Soweto. They don't have any
Right.
other home they know. If he has got a
Yes.
mkuku right there, that's his home, and he need whatever money
Right.
that he can get. And now there is another foreigner playing
Mhm,
your music next door. Sorry,
mhm.
I just find it funny when they say that, playing your music next door and make it in life,
Yeah.
whatever that means. You're making money, and
Right.
I don't have. It
Right.
becomes an issue.
So it becomes an issue. So this is the point now. This is at this point I want to appeal to foreign nationals living in South Africa, right?
That's right.
To say that, you know, and I'm saying this because I've done this in my past life in this country, where I ran a marketing agency, and in that company, um, you know, 90% of the people that I had were locals. They were local South Africans, and I would hire local South Africans and also transfer and also coach and also teach certain skills I knew about that particular industry to
That's
them.
right.
So what I want to say is that to Zimbabweans or any foreign nationals out there living, wherever you are. When you are doing your projects, whatever it is, whether it's construction, whether you do, sewing, whatever you do, you know, have it in you and be intentional about this. Go out there, get one or two local people and say, guys, come, let's work together on this.
That's
This is
right.
what I can afford to pay, okay? But this is the job. Let's go out there, let's work together. It's always better to offer and give, opportunities to people out there. Where our people get it wrong is that they think that they can only work alone and they don't want to
Yeah.
associate and
Yeah.
they don't want to work
And
with
we are
local
loud
people.
about it. We are loud
I
about it.
don't I do not believe in that. I believe that this country has done so much for a lot of foreign nationals, and it's important for people to appreciate what this country has done. Okay, and you know, and give back into local communities. There are some people that are doing extremely well. Give back into the local communities. How do you give back? It's not just about going out there with a hamper and say, okay, take this hamper. No, we are saying employ people. We are saying transfer skills, into locals, so that they also can, you know, build themselves as well going up. It's about passing on that baton stick, to the next generation. So this is important, and it's a conversation that eh, foreign nationals must have in
Must
this
have.
country.
That's
You
true.
can't just be saying, yeah, you can't just be saying, no, me, I'm doing well, in whatever, and then I don't care about anyone else. That attitude is wrong, and we must call it out as it is and say it's wrong. People must be, understand that this country has given them so much, and they must also give back, whether it's skills development, whether it's giving jobs, whatever it is. Let's get to a place, to a point where we start doing that. I know there's a certain race that people talk about. I don't know, from Asia, that doesn't want to work with anyone. It doesn't want to train anyone. Let's not be like that. We are Africans. We talk about Ubuntu.
Mm-hmm.
This Ubuntu thing cannot just be a word that we talk about. Okay, when there's a funeral or when there's this, but when it's time for joy and spending money at parties, it doesn't exist. It only exists when people are in trouble.
Mm.
Ubuntu can't be like that.
Yeah.
Let's be people that are willing to share skills.
To share
Let's be
skills.
people that are willing to hire other local people as well.
Yeah, I do get that, and it's something that I always talk to my people about. When there is something
Mhm.
that you need, um, look at the local people around you who need jobs, who are
Yes.
inboxing. There are a lot of them. Pass on a skill if there is something
Mhm.
that you know. Some of them are like most of them actually are willing to learn. Let us exchange our skills. But before, well, we get into much more about this integration.
Mhm.
Operation Dudula, March on March, and well, now I can say most of the South Africans, they want people to go home. Hashtag Mabahambe. They want people to go back home. When are we going back
Yeah.
home? When I say we, I'm talking about people who are running
Yeah.
this business. You are now successful in your little business that you are doing in
Yeah.
South Africa. You have got the skills. When are
Yeah.
you going home to start investing in your home? Because when we look into all of this, now they want you to go home. We need to have those
Yeah.
type of conversations to say, we've been here
Yeah.
for years. We have learned a lot. At some point, we need to
Mhm.
leave. When you, I watched that interview that Zandile from Dudula did, where she said, "Yeah, I'm from
Yes.
Soweto and
Yeah.
Aslawa Makaya." And it got me
Yeah.
thinking, we come
Yeah.
here, we do whatever we benefit from all of this, but it's Namakaya. When all
Right.
is said and done,
Mhm.
somebody decides that South Africa is now the enemy of a certain country and they want to mess
Yeah.
up South Africa. We pick up our bags and we go home. Where do they go? Because that's the home,
Right.
that's the only home they know. This is why
Right.
some of them are now fighting because they want their home. You come into South Africa, you do any crime, and things
Mhm.
goes wrong. Where do you go? You go home because you have a home to go to. When Mozambicans and Malawians earned their $20 and their country became okay, what did they do? They went back home.
They went home.
So when are we
Again,
getting to that
when
stage?
are we going? Right. So look, you make it's a very important question that you've asked. Let me just say this that the there's no place like home, right? Wherever you go, people always talk about there's no place like home.
Yeah,
And the at some point, foreign nationals, will go back into their countries. This is what normally happens.
yeah,
You know, in every 20 years in a country, there's usually, if you look at what is happening now, what happened in Zimbabwe from the year, let's just say from the year 2000, there were a lot of political factors that affected the economics of that country, which led to, you know, an exodus of skills of people into other parts of the world. Growing up, nobody thought that they would move overseas, etc. That was never on the agenda.
hmm,
But things changed in 2000. Political events, and that led into the influx of foreign nationals or Zimbabweans into other parts of the world, right?
hmm,
So those events turned around that situation, and this is why people ended up elsewhere, right?
yeah,
Now, in South Africa, as we speak right now, so it's been 20 years, it's been 20 something years now, in fact, 25 years now. Experts are saying, they are saying things are starting to get better in Zimbabwe economically, even investments, in fact, there are certain companies that are starting to, South African companies that are now starting to invest in Zimbabwe, businesses that are now, for example, I was reading an article where Marion Roberts have just
yeah,
opened,
yeah. I
in
saw
fact,
that.
they've moved to Zimbabwe to start a business there. You saw that. Every single time you fly to Zimbabwe from OR Tambo, there's a lot of, the Afrikaner community heading to Zimbabwe. They're not there on holiday. Most of these people are going there to look at opportunities, and so forth. So let me, with as much as South Africans are saying Abahambe and so on, uh, this problem is not going to end just because Zimbabweans are gone. I need to make this point that you see the danger of saying Abahambe, everybody must go, is that when Zimbabweans and all foreign nationals leave, right, it does not change the political or economic environment. Okay, what then happens is that you start thinking the Shangane, the Venda, the Tonga, the Squati, the Tswana is the problem, right? And you start fighting those people. Okay, and then when those people are being fought again, you start fighting among each other. So the problem is not so much about that, but the issue for experts, they say that the economy has not been growing for some time. So there's a lot to do with policies. There's a lot to do with politics, and so forth. Now, like I said, at some point, Zimbabweans will go back. At some point, foreign nationals will go back to their countries. It's a natural thing. Nobody wants to live in South Africa for the rest of their lives. Okay, this is why even the idea of open borders, it's actually a good idea because at some point when people have done well, I'm saying open borders, but I'm saying people must be documented because personally, I don't believe in this idea that people that have no documents must move from one point to another. I don't believe in that. But
Yeah,
I'm saying open borders so that there's easy movement from point A to point B, where people can do business, where people can trade
yeah,
between, the SADC region, instead
yeah,
of you as an entrepreneur, as a business person, when you create a product, instead of selling to just 46 or 64 million people in South Africa, you look at the SADC region as your market.
no, that's
Then
right.
you now leveraging that population, and your business does well. So that's what we need to start thinking like. This is what we need to start looking at. But when you're saying everybody they must leave, we don't want them, it means that you're not thinking big in terms of business. You're not looking at
Mm,
Africa as as a market. You're just looking at one small little country and say, that's my market. This is why countries like Europe and in America, entrepreneurs, they do well because it's all about volumes. It's all about people. So I'm saying the frustrations that people are going through right now, I understand them, but
Hmm.
they are not going to be fixed because foreign nationals have left. That does not solve the problem.
That's right.
There are fundamental issues that are happening in the political arena that must be addressed, and that's where the issue is,
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, because of
politically
our
and
time.
economically.
Yes, that's right. Just because of
Mhm.
our time, we have to cut it short, and I would love to have you and more people who are willing to come and have these conversations. Always be in touch so that we can keep on this conversation. You raised an important